Hi, everyone. It's great to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. This presentation is being done as part of the AUIS Campus Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Eileen Brewer. I'm the director of the Talkween Accelerator, which is housed at AUIS. And tonight I'm going to do a presentation called the Startup Lifecycle. The presentation is only about 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions to answer all those great questions you might have. First, I would like to talk about the Talkween Accelerator. Talkween is a project of the Janhad, an initiative to promote civic engagement and entrepreneurship for youth in Iraq, financed by the European Union and the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, implemented by Expertise France, and hosted at the American University of Iraq, Suleimani. So this talk tonight is about to remove confusion around what you hear when you hear the words startup, investment, businesses, SME, and innovation and entrepreneurship. Oftentimes we hear these terms, but we don't know what they are. And the Iraq startup ecosystem is very young. And I receive a lot of questions at the accelerator. So we thought it would be a good idea to help everyone understand some of the terminology and the process that happens to remove some of the confusion that's out in the community right now. So what is a startup life cycle? First, what should happen is that you find a problem that needs to be solved. You want to find big problems that need to be solved, not small problems, so that your users are many. You want hundreds of thousands of users, not just a few thousand users. Your problems to be solved could be replacing old methods with new digitalized methods or solutions. Your problems could address something that's too slow and you want to make it faster. It could be a process, it could be a payment, it could be getting something from A to B, or it could be getting food to the market or any other process that you see that takes a long time. What can you do to make it happen faster? It could be one of the problems you're solving is that there's a very limited reach because technology hasn't been enabled yet. So maybe you take something that exists and you implement technology so that many more people can access it. You can also replace out-of-date content or concepts. An example in this area would be e-learning and updating curriculum to match today's standards and needs. The next step would be to find a co-founder. And the way you do this is that you list for yourself what your strongest skills are. Are you a developer? Are you a business major? Do you have experience already working in a specific field where you want to solve a problem? List what all of your skills are. Think about the problem and then think about what skills you're missing. Where are your gaps? Where would you like help? So it's better to put, say, for example, an engineer and a business person together instead of two engineers, and then you still have no business acumen. So think about, and I'm not saying don't have two engineers. I'm saying when you're creating your co-founders, make sure you have diversity in skills. And then you can search for co-founders either at your university, talking to your peers, or going to LinkedIn and starting to grow and expand your network, or going to an incubator and starting to work or have a co-working space in an incubator where you have other like-minded people around you. The next thing I recommend that you do is do some research and understand what dynamic equity sharing is. So one of the biggest mistakes that happens is if I invite you to come be a co-founder, we sit down and we have coffee and we agree we're going to be co-founders, and then we decide we're going to split the business in half. We each own 50%. And then 6 months later, you're very frustrated because this other person has not been delivering at the level that you deliver. So what you can do is use dynamic equity sharing. If you go and research on this, the best tool that I have seen is called slicing pie. And what it is, there's a free Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to buy the software. You can use the free Excel spreadsheet, and they already have all the formulas inside based on years of research. And you keep track of how many hours each person is contributing, or if they have put money in to buy things, or if they have generated sales and gotten customers for you. All of this is calculated to determine what percent of equity they should have for their contributions, including yourself. So it makes it much more fair, and it's very good to start doing that in the beginning so that you're very successful in the year or two from now when you're trying to divide the pie. So the next thing you would like to do is join an incubator or a makerspace, because the ecosystem is very young in Iraq, so it's hard to find like-minded people. And oftentimes, if you go and you talk to someone and you say, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to go start my own business and I'm going to make money off of my phone. And your parents and others are going to say, no, that can't happen. That's not good. So they're very concerned about you going to be an entrepreneur. The best thing to do is surround yourself with like-minded people. And where you can do that is at your university, or at an incubator, or at a makerspace, so that you're spending time with other people who believe in the same concepts and ideas that you do. And in these spaces, you can increase your business acumen, you can increase your network and find other entrepreneurs or potential co-founders. You can learn about what Lean Canvas is and use the Lean Canvas template to write your business plan. And you can learn about design thinking so that you complete your market research correctly so that you build better products. So the next step now is that you go out and you do market research. At this moment, you have spent no money. You have needed no money from anyone. You can get all the way to this point and beyond without spending any money. The most important thing to do is to do your market research before you build your solution. If you build your solution before you do market research, you're likely way too attached to your idea and your solution, and it will increase your failure rate. Out of the top 20 reasons why startups fail, 42% fail because there's no market need. We get an idea in our head and we think everyone needs this. And then we don't ask them, we just go build it. And then we spend all that money to build it. We spend all those hours and effort, and then we take it to market and no one wants it. They don't want to buy it because you didn't ask them. So what you can do for free is go out and do market research to learn about what they want. And you ask very open-ended questions. You ask them, do you buy certain products? Where do you find them? What do you like about them? What do you not like about them? So it could be anything around what your solution is, but very open-ended. You don't walk in and say, if I make this, would you buy it? That's not proper market research. So think about open-ended questions that you would ask so you can learn more about how they're solving this problem. There's this problem that you're trying to solve. Ask them, how do they solve this problem, so that you get a better idea of the solution you should build. Now you're finally ready to start building a prototype, or what we call minimal viable product. Once you have a prototype or a minimal viable product, this is where you could start applying for grants and see whether or not anyone is willing to support you. you will have a much, much higher chance of receiving grants or funding at this point if you have followed the steps that I've outlined. If you have not figured out a solution and you don't have a you haven't figured out what problem you're solving, you don't have a co-founder, you haven't done lean canvas, you haven't done design thinking, you haven't done market research, and you're just walking in and saying, I have an idea, may I have some money? There will be no success here, or very, very little success. So you want to go in with the story. You want to go in proving that you've done your part. You've done research. You've done all of this work. All of this can be done at this point for free. Now you walk in and say, I have this concept. I would like to get some funding to move it forward to the next level. Then what you do is you produce more of your product and take it out and start selling it. So now you want to generate some sales and some revenue. You need to develop your sales pitch so that you can teach others how to sell your product or solution exactly the way you want them to speak about your product. You don't just start saying, hey, people, sell my product for me and I'll give you a little bit of money, because they're going to come up with their own idea of how to sell your product. You want to have a very scripted sales pitch so that everyone that's representing your product or selling your product is stating and representing it exactly the way you want them to. And then you need to identify what your value proposition is. And your value proposition is what makes you different from all the other solutions that address this problem. Why is your product better than the others? And it's not something simple like mine costs less. It costs less today because you're brand new and starving, but it's not going to stay that way. Eventually, your price is going to go up as you recognize you need to generate a higher cost per sales. So, I mean, a higher sales price so you can cover all of your costs. So you need to know, what is your value proposition? What makes you better than? And then you want to build a sales pipeline, which means going out and generating as many sales opportunities as possible. One of the ways that you can get people to buy your product is to offer some free trials and then convert them. I think probably all of us are using free versions of software. There's many, many, many products that offer a small module of their product for free. So I'm using Slack and Canva and Asana, Zoom. There's many software products and other products that we use for free. So we get really used to it and we like it a lot. And then as we grow, we realize, oh, now I need that other feature. And now your customers will start paying for using your products. So sometimes you can offer a free trial to convert them into a paying customer. Now you're ready to join an accelerator. At an accelerator, we increase your business acumen even more. We're going to give you training on financial statements and increase your network of other more successful entrepreneurs. We're going to teach you about business finance and how to pitch to investors and how to start building an investor pipeline. So similar to a sales pipeline, in investors, you need to find many opportunities of investors because you will pitch many times before one or two say yes. So this is when you're going to start inviting angel investors to invest with you. And angel investors write smaller checks. They're individual people who write smaller checks. These checks, depending on what country you're in, could be anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000. But again, it depends on what country you're in, the size of the checks that come from angel investors. We only invest in about 3 to 6% of those that they listen to pitches. So if I'm an angel investor, I'm going to listen to 100 pitches and I might invest in 3 to 6 of those 100. So you need to get really, really comfortable with the idea that you're going to pitch your project many, 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 many times, easily 100 times. Any founder can tell you, if they are a successful founder with a very successful startup, they will all tell you they have pitched over 100 times. So research your investors to improve your results. Make sure that you're not wasting your time talking to investors who won't invest in a rock or who won't invest in the particular industry that you're in. It's perfectly okay to ask them up front, would you invest in a startup in a rock? If they say yes, then you ask them, what types of businesses do you prefer to invest in? And make sure you get that match before you spend your time talking to them or pitching to them. Now you have received angel investment, you've grown your business, it's bigger, it's strong, it's healthy, it's growing, and you need more investment, you need more funding. This is the point where you actually start talking to venture capital. Venture capitalists are much, much larger checks. These checks will be in $500,000 to multi-million-dollar checks. These are the ones that you hear about in the news. What you don't hear about in the news is all this work that you had to do to get there. So you hear about Lezzo received $5 million or Arizdi received, $2 million. But you don't know the backstory. You don't know how hard they worked and how many times they pitched and how many years of work they put into it before they received that funding. You only know about what hits the news. But this presentation is about telling you about how to get there. If you want to be in the news at that level, how you get there. But there's a caveat to it. I want you to understand. When you receive lots of money from these venture capitalists, what venture capitalists do is they collect a lot of money from others and pool it together. That's why they're able to write such big checks. So they go out and get a lot of the funds, and then they are responsible for investing it wisely. So now you receive $1 million. So you're going to go out and you're going to hire more staff. You're going to move into a bigger office space. You're going to pay for more marketing of your product. You're going to pay for some development that you need to get done. And you're going to maybe pay back some of the early loans that you received. So now you're feeling comfortable. Investors do not invest in startups that are not willing to exit. This is one of those terms that gets used in the ecosystem. You must exit the business. Exiting the business means that you either go public, you have an initial public offering, IPO, which means you're now a public stock. Anyone can buy shares of your product. This would most likely happen in Dubai, or you get acquired by somebody else. You're purchased by a bigger company that is in the same industry as you. So there's a great opportunity in Iraq to build software products that are similar to what's being done in the world, but those big companies have not come into Iraq yet. They don't know about the potential in Iraq, so they haven't come. But if you build a software product that's similar to theirs and you offer it in Arabic and Kurdish and English, and you develop a large customer base, that other company is going to come in and they would want to acquire you, because that would give them the Iraqi customer base without having to do all the hard work that you did. They would just come in and acquire you. And your role then is to go out and become a serial entrepreneur and start another business. If you have no intention of leaving your business and you want to keep it forever, then you do not want angel investors or VC investment. They will only invest in businesses who have a plan to exit the business. If you don't want to exit or sell your business, then you do not want these types of investors. You may want to look at partners or partnerships. That is entirely different than investors. These investors expect you, they're going to give you 3 to 7 years and they want you to be done, and they want their returns, and they want really, really high returns for the money that they put in. So if I put in $100,000, I expect to get no less than $700,000 back. So you have to be able to, in your pitch, convince investors that you're going to have that really, really, really high rate of return, which means you would grow the business really fast over the next few years, and being able to explain how you do that. So now you've exited the business, you've sold it, and you've gotten an acquisition. Now you have tons of money coming in. You have all this money because you're either selling stock on the public stock market, or you have been acquired by another business, and now sitting on your desk is all this additional money. But you got to give it all away. You have to pay off some loans. You have to pay off your angel investors. They expect returns on their investments. And you need to pay off your VC investors. They expect returns. You might have had what's called a Series A round or a Series B round. This is when you go out and you ask for money over and over again. You have a Series A, Series B, Series C. And then you may need to pay employees with stock options. Maybe you convince them to come work for you for free because you didn't have any money for salary yet, but you would offer them some equity in exchange. So you need to pay them off. So now that you've paid all of these people off, what's left for you? What is left for you depends on how well you managed your cap table. Now, a cap table is who all owns the business. How much percent did you give away every time you got an investor? How much percent of the business did you give them in exchange for that money? These are not loans. This is exchanging. They're taking a percentage of ownership of your business. No investor will invest in your business if you don't hold a minimum of 51% ownership of that equity in your business. If you own less than 51%, other people can take control of the business. It's no longer yours. So you have to be very careful of how many shares or what percentages you give away. If somebody comes to you today and says, I'll give you $100,000 for 20%, you're desperate for the money, but now 20% of your business is gone. And you have many, many more rounds of investment to go. And that your next guy is going to give you 500,000 and he's going to want more than the 20% that the 100,000 person got. And so each person, as they give you more money, expect more percent. So you have to be very careful. You'll run out of what you can exchange very, very quickly. There are a couple of international examples. Y Combinator, many of you have heard of Y Combinator. Their standard is for an investment into your business of $125,000, they expect 7% equity. So that's like a benchmark. That's a global benchmark that you can use to help you as you're beginning and you're getting your very, very first investment conversation, your first term sheet. That's a little bit of a benchmark that you could use. So be careful about how much you give away to make sure that there's enough left for you. I want to tell you about Mailchimp. Some of you have heard of Mailchimp. Just like 6 weeks ago, Mailchimp confirmed a $12 billion deal because they sold to Intuit. So Mailchimp was a startup, just like you, but what the difference is, they received no investment from anyone. They refused any investments. So when Intuit came and purchased them for $12 billion, guess who's on that cap table? 2 founders. That's it. No one else. They didn't have to give that money to anyone else. You do not need to have outside investment to be a successful startup. These 2 founders made a decision in the beginning and said, we will go as slow as we have to go and we will be successful. We will put every penny back into the business and we will grow. We'll grow as fast as we can with our own money. And they did it. And they were very, very successful. So they're splitting $12 billion between 2 people instead of between 20 or 30 or 40 people. So I would like you to be a Mailchimp. I think that success in the startup ecosystem world is misperceived. And when you hear about investment dollars, millions of dollars getting invested in startups, that's fine, but it really needs to be for the right reasons. And the startups that don't get any outside investment are actually more successful. You just don't hear about them until something like this happens, until Mailchimp does this type of a acquisition. So my message to you is, don't think that you must have outside investment. Do as much as you possibly can yourself. And that's the entrepreneurship mindset. That mindset is, I will do as much as possible with my own resources or with grants, which is free money. You don't have to pay grants back, and they don't take equity. So look for grants and look for ways that you can grow your business based on revenue coming in. Every penny of revenue coming in goes back into the business. It doesn't go into paying big salaries or buying a new car. It just goes back into the business so that you can grow your business quickly without asking for outside investment. So what should we do in Iraq and Kurdistan to build the startup ecosystem? You need to find big problems to solve. And those problems that you're solving when you're creating the solution, they need to be innovative and disruptive. Don't just copy someone else. Don't make another delivery app. Don't make another e-commerce website. Go out and solve some big problems. Look at the agricultural industry here and look at how can we improve crop yield. There's a lot of technology that can be put into the fields that will increase crop yield. Think about little sensors out in the dirt that tell you the water, moisture level, and sun exposure. Imagine a farmer being able to look at a laptop dashboard, and it has the layout of his crops, and it uses red, yellow, green signaling to tell him exactly which parts of the field he needs to go and work on, instead of him driving in and out of every single row and checking everything. Think about solar. Think about how to address the power grid. Think about plastic wrapping. I moved to Iraq a year ago, and I was a little shocked about how much plastic, single-use plastic there is still happening here. There's a lot of opportunity to remove single-use plastic. You can just go do research on what the solutions are and then build those solutions in your country with your resources, with your materials, with your staff, with local people. It can be done. You have all kinds of, you have hundreds of universities. You have science, you have biology, you have chemistry, you have business, you have all the right players. You just need to think bigger and think about really innovative, disruptive solutions, and continue to build more incubators and maker spaces so you all have more places to come together and work together and find each other and support each other. We need to see more entrepreneurship courses in schools. And I don't mean just university. I'm talking about secondary, primary, every school. There's all kinds of ways that you can introduce entrepreneurship, collaborative, teamwork, problem solving, critical thinking into course materials. And become a mentor or a trainer. If you're a business professional and you have this expertise, volunteer your time to go into these incubators and maker spaces to deliver and share your expertise with the next generation. If you have wealth, then become an angel investor in Iraq and start investing in these startups that are coming up in the country. And support and believe in big thinkers. This is critical. There are many cultures where thinking creatively is frowned upon. Everybody wants you to be a doctor or an engineer or a scientist. No one wants you to be an entrepreneur. And when entrepreneurs speak up about these amazing, innovative, and disruptive solutions they have, The people around them often give them negative feedback. You can control that. I'm talking to majority university students right now today in this session. Imagine if every single university had an innovation hub, and if every single university gave the opportunity to students to become entrepreneurs and think outside of the box and to think of innovative and disruptive solutions to problems, and you all supported each other. No one criticized each other for their idea. No one tries to put down or say it won't work or try to steal the idea. You create your own idea. Someone came up with a great idea, good, cheer them on, support them. Don't take it away, don't put them down. Go come up with your own great idea and they'll support you. So you can create those ecosystems. And if the ecosystem doesn't exist right now, then you make it. There's no reason why 5, 6, 7 of you can't come together and start this. Don't wait for leadership to do something for you. You have the power within yourself to create these spaces, to believe in each other, to support each other, and to push this ecosystem where you want it to go. A rock is at the cutting edge, like at the very, very beginning, like a nascent, but there's no reason why you can't push yourself out to the cutting edge and compete with other people globally. It's in your power and in your control to do it. Don't wait for others. Find like-minded people, create these spaces, and support each other through it. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my part and I'll go ahead and open it up to questions if anyone has any questions at all. You could put something in chat. Did you find the presentation helpful? Did it answer questions for you? Do you want to be an entrepreneur, or now you're afraid, like, forget it, I don't want to do it? Did we inspire or lose entrepreneurs? Yes, Nor, go ahead and ask your question. You can't do live, you have to type it in. So you can type it into the Q&A. Because it's set up as a webinar, we can't turn the whole audience live. Are there any IPOs in Iraq? Not that I'm aware of, but there are some that are getting close. You have 2 or 3 that are looking. Thank you. Sorry, my internet just went down, everyone. So we're going to do it a different way. We're going to kludge this together. What was the last question I was working on? Oh, how to find big problems. So make sure that it's in an area that you're interested in, because you're going to dedicate a lot of time to this problem. So you want to make sure it's something that you like doing. And then think about how things are happening in that space right now. Think about, you can create different categories. You can create school, community, and home. What happens inside of your home every day? What's old and broken and needs innovation? What's happening in your community that's old and broken and needs innovation? I provided you several ideas, but you can expand on those when it comes to packaging materials or electrical grid or clean water in every home. Like, what's happening today and where would you like it to be? So think about, what are your favorite areas of work that you like to spend your time on, and then think about where problems are that your favorite areas of work could address. How about the next question?
So Hannah is asking, what are the obstacles in Iraq and Middle East in general for entrepreneurs?
One of the first obstacles is there's not enough education provided on what it means to be an entrepreneur, and there's not enough education around, like, there's not a lot of opportunities in university for critical thinking, problem solving, hand-on projects to create that mindset is the first hurdle. Then the second hurdle is finding like-minded people so that you are supported through the process. So making sure that you get into some type of an incubator or co-working space. And right now there's maybe 6 or 7 in the country, but they're pretty far apart. So if there's not one near you, then it's difficult to stay around like-minded people. But there's, like, the funding, people want to point to funding, but there's a lot of work that you can do to get you started without any funding. And once you go through those first initial steps that I talked about, you will find funding in Iraq. There's funding available in Iraq, but they don't just hand money away because people have ideas. They give money to people who have developed their ideas to a certain level. So funding is not an issue. There's a lot of money coming in. It's taking the time and understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur, to make something innovative. I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, so we have an interesting question from Rowan Ali. He says, you have mentioned about business plans. What is a good business plan? Is it possible to get a seed fund by having a strong business plan?
So first, to write a good business plan, I recommend that you download what's called Lean Canvas Model. So maybe Mukti, if you could type that into the chat, it's Lean Canvas Model. You can download a free template and you can listen to some recordings on how to complete a Lean Canvas Model template. This template is what's used by startups in Silicon Valley now to write their business plan. They do not write a 20-page Word document. They use this template and they complete it in 1 or 2 pages. It's done. So you use 2 or 3 bullets to state what your problem is that you're solving. 2 or 3 short bulleted answers. What's your solution? Who are the demographics of your users? How are you going to reach your users? This type of thing. So download the Lean Canvas, fill in all of those questions, but listen to some YouTubes or read about Lean Canvas before you fill in the boxes. And then once you fill in those boxes, that's your business plan. There are some who will invest at this point. But think about it. Would you give $5,000 to a person who wrote a document
Or would you give $5,000 to someone who not only wrote the document, they also went out and did market research, and they have defined for you what that market research proved, how many, they interviewed 100 people, 80% of them said they would do this. This is the solution I'm trying to develop. This is the price point. This is how much it would cost me. So there's a limited amount of money that can go out at idea stage. And those who are reviewing all of the applications to give money at idea stage are going to choose those who have done the most work. So yes, you could go ahead and present a business plan, but consider who you're competing against to get that money. And those who have done market research and have more, or maybe have built a prototype, will move above you in that when they're making those decisions. Next.
So Mustafa is asking, he says, I did not understand why you should be able to exit your project if you are planning to work with investors. And wouldn't that be a waste, or is it for the good of the project created?
So investors are investing in the business, but they don't get any money back. Investors are not receiving part of the revenue per month or part of the revenue per quarter. You're not writing checks to investors every quarter for a percentage of the revenue that you generate. Investors give you money today and they sit and they wait for years to get the money back. That's why you have to exit the business. These are not loans. These are not partners. These are investors. I give you some money early, very, very high risk for me because 90% of startups fail. So it's very high risk for me to invest money. And then I sit and wait for 3 to 5 to 7 years and I get nothing. Then you sell the business. Then I receive my returns and I expect very, very high returns because I took a really high risk. If you have a bunch of investors and your business fails, you do not have to pay all those investors back, but they will not invest in you again. We take very high risk because many of the investors, the startups we invest in, they fail. I have no recourse. If your startup fails, I have no recourse. It's not a loan. I can't go after you and say, you have to sell your house or your car and you have to pay me back, because it's not a loan, it's an investment. So understanding the difference of those two is important. If you want investment so that you can grow a giant business with the intention of selling the business, then you're looking for investors. If you want loans or partners who keep receiving quarterly checks for a portion of the revenue, then that's a different business model.
We have another question from Noor Al-Janabi. She says, for a startup in Iraq that do not plan to go for investors, is it possible that we could have less chance to get support, grow our network, or get succeeded?
No, you don't have a less chance. You'll just might be slightly slower, but that's not an issue or a problem. So if you have no investors, it's okay. You're still going out and selling your product. So imagine if you're using a delivery app right now today, you don't care whether or not that delivery app has investors or doesn't have investors. You use a product because you like the product. So if you go to an e-commerce website, you don't care if that e-commerce website has investors or not. You just use that website because you like that website. So whether or not you have investors or not will not impact your ability. What will impact your ability is, can you grow as fast as you need to grow to keep getting more of the market share? If you grow too slow, some of your competitors will pass you up and they will grab the market share. So it's a very tricky game to figure out, can I do it without investors? will I fall too far behind, or can I do it without investors and I can still stay at the top of the market? I can still gain a lot of customers quickly.
Rowan Ali, no, actually, Rizgar Hussein is asking, what should we do in order to be different from others when they take your idea and do the same thing as you do?
Then you have to innovate again. There are, 6 or 8 delivery services inside of a rock right now. It's going to happen over and over. And people will try to copy you all the time. That's why you have to have a value proposition. There's 2 things to focus on. One is, how do I develop my solution so that it's very, very hard for anyone else to copy it? This is the implementation of machine learning, AI, robotics, patents, new algorithms, anything that you can implement into your solution that other people cannot copy. The other is, what is your value proposition? How do you differentiate yourself? So this is going beyond food delivery apps like this. I want you guys to think bigger, solve bigger problems. Don't create solutions that are very basic and easy to copy. Create bigger, more complex solutions that are harder to copy. And if somebody does copy you, then innovate and add features to your product to make it better and different. And you just keep doing that over and over. People copy everywhere. Like you can go and look at solutions that are implemented in the UK, in Turkey, in Dubai, and you can copy those and you can make them right here in Iraq. You can copy them and you can build them up and you can have lots of customers. You could even go back to the one that you copied from and you can say, hey, I created something similar to you, but you're not in the Iraq market and I have 5,000 customers. Do you want to buy me? There you can copy, but you also want to look at what can you make that's innovative, that's hard to copy.
Eileen, we are taking the last question from Rowan Ali, where he says, so it is more likely to fund an MVP rather than a business plan holder. Can you more talk about MVP more in cost and investment perspective?
Yes, so like what I was saying before, it's more likely to receive money if you have created a minimal viable product or a prototype. So if you hand me a business plan, I'll say that's a great start. But if you hand me a business plan and you say you've done market research, then you're one ahead of the one before you. If you say I've done market research and I've built a prototype, then now you're ahead of the other one. So your prototype or your minimal viable product is the simplest version of your solution that you can start showing customers or investors or grant makers to show them the concept of what you're working on and start getting feedback on that concept. You do not want to spend a year hiding and developing and putting an entire year in because you think that your solution has to have these 10 things and you cannot show it to anyone until you have those 10 things. This is the wrong thinking, and this is how people will pass you up. The proper way to do it is to create the smallest version of your solution, show it to people and get big feedback, and then build on it, and then show it to people and get feedback, and then build on it some more. You don't have to have all 10 features made, but at least have 1 or 2 of your features made, and then start showing people. That's what minimal viable product is, and that's what really interests investors.
Okay, I think we are done with questions, Eileen.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much. I'm so sorry my internet went down. Happens to all of us at least once. Thank you for joining the call today. This has been live streamed to Facebook. You can post questions in Facebook. We keep a tab on there, and we'll continue to answer your questions as they come up. on 2 nights from now, on Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we will be hosting a panel with several of Rock founders on the panel, and they'll answer some of these questions as well and how they got started and what they're doing today. And they'll be open for your questions on Wednesday. See you then.